What is good, everybody, man? Sorry, my voice definitely out here cracking. But man, it's been a long few days. I got a late start up to Montgomery, and listen, I know everyone's heard about the team being late, some of the travel issues that other people had. Let me tell you guys, the city of Montgomery was not ready for what hit this past weekend. There were so many people in Montgomery this weekend. First, I want to say shout out to just the environment for both teams, man. Listen, both Alabama State and Jackson State fans absolutely showed out. That was by far, hands down, the best environment that I think I've been in all season long, and that rivaled some of the better environments that I've been to just in my life. I mean, that includes P5 games and even some SEC games that I've been to. That was a hell of an environment, man. So shout out to all the Alabama State fans, all the Jackson State fans who showed up. They were loud, and man, the announcers were getting everyone into the game. Both teams played really well, but we'll get into all the post game, just shenanigans that went on. Listen, I've had a chance to sit back. I had some things off the show that I had to handle yesterday that didn't allow me to go live like I wanted. So, man, we're live tonight. I got a chance to listen to everyone's thoughts on the matter, and uh, I that's all I can say, man. I just gotta laugh because some of the things I have been hearing and some of the takes I've heard are pretty funny, man. But listen, to get us started off, hit the like button, like the stream. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, man. We're on the hashtag road to 5K. I think we're just under 100 people away from hitting 5,000 subscribers. And I think we're only about 50,000 views away from hitting 1 million views in the history of this channel, man. So shout out to y'all for that. If you're the updated FCS game day schedule this weekend, I should be in Baton Rouge this weekend for Southern versus Alcorn State in a huge SWAC West matchup. Then the week after that, I'll be going up to Chattanooga, Tennessee for Chattanooga versus Mercer, a potential top 15 matchup depending on how the rankings shape up over these next 2 weeks. So I will not be in Jackson for Jackson State versus Campbell. I'll be keeping up with it on my phone. And I'm definitely going to be in Chattanooga. And then the 29th is up in the air. I'm either going to be at A&T for A&T Campbell, or I'm really considering possibly going up to Massachusetts for Holy Cross versus Fordham. I really want to go see Tim DeMoret versus a top 10 team in Holy Cross. So we'll see. And then the fifth still up in the air, but Alcorn Jackson State will be the FCS game day destination for was it November 19th, the last week of the FCS season. We will be back in Lorman for Alcorn State versus Jackson State. But right now, that's what the FCS game day schedule is looking like. But listen, week 6 FCS recap. We got players of the week, FCS top 25, a brief recap over the week, and then this show is really just for you guys to call in, get y'all's thoughts off y'all's chest about all the craziness. I know we had the Southern PV brawl. We have a debate over who is SWAC and who is not. We have a big shakeup in the top 25 after some CAA madness this weekend and some big upsets. But Jerome, it's coming. If you're a level 2 member, you're going to get first access to the exclusive merch. So everyone who joined the level 2 of the membership tier, I think it's like $4.99 a month, definitely going to definitely going to get y'all some merch and then release to the general public. So I got some things brewing. I'm getting some designers together. Listen, I might be creative in terms of graphics on YouTube and thumbnails. I don't know what I'm not very good at t-shirt design, so I got someone helping me with that for sure. No, so listen, I was supposed to be at the press conference today. I wasn't able to be there. I had some personal things off the show that came up this morning. I wasn't able to be at the press conference. That's why y'all didn't hear any questions from me this week. I had some things off the show that I had to handle. We'll be back next week, and I got plenty of questions. I was pissed, DW, that I had some things come up and I couldn't be there because I had questions written out and I had like 15 questions that I needed answered. But I thought the press conference went a lot smoother than I was expecting. I think everyone um, kept it on football, and they really asked some good questions. I like that they didn't really get into the weeds of all the drama that happened off the field. But man, let's get this thing rolling so we can get to y'all's calls at the later in the show. The call-in number is 701-779-9585. First off, offensive players of the week for the FCS, man. Number one, Lindsey Scott Jr. I mean, I think this is his third player of the week for this channel. And listen, his week 6 stats include the first and second quarter. Lindsey Scott did not play in the second half against Lamar this weekend. And in a single half of football, Lindsey Scott threw for 401 yards, 7 passing touchdowns, and an 88.5 completion percentage this weekend in 2 quarters of football. Lindsey Scott by far was the player of the week, and it wasn't even close. And in just one half of football, honestly, if I had to vote right now for the Walter Payton, it would be extremely hard not to give it to Lindsey Scott due to his strength of schedule thus far on his resume, man. But Lindsey Scott went berserk this weekend, man. 7 touchdowns and 400 yards in one half. I don't care if they were playing Virginia Lynchburg or whoever Southern played week 1 or Florida Memorial. That's impressive. And the fact that they were playing an FCS team in Lamar, a conference opponent, that's impressive that he was able to put up the stats he did. And then the next 2 guys, Cade Brister from Lindenwood. If you're not familiar with the school Lindenwood, they are right now that this is their, I believe this is their first year at the FCS level. Came up from D2 last year. They're in the OVC. But man, Cade Brister, 413 passing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, and 2 passing touchdowns this weekend. And listen, when you got 7 touchdowns and 400 yards, you got to be a player of the week. The reason I gave it to Scott over him is Lindsey Scott did it in 2 quarters. And then finally, I always like to give one non-quarterback an award. Jeremiah Dobbins for Abilene Christian, running back, 166 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns, and almost 5.5 yards per carry in a big game with Abilene Christian. And I don't think they're getting enough respect. If you haven't seen, the WAC ASUN is sharing an auto bid, but they're doing some sort of weird power ranking to see which conference person takes it. I still think Abilene Christian right now is the best team in the ASUN / the WAC. Them and Austin P, I think, are going to be the two best teams right now. But I think Jeremiah Dobbins earned this one. The defensive players of the week, this one was tough. There were some outrageous performances. Luke Glenna, though, from St. Thomas. Now, if you don't know who St. Thomas is the team that jumped 2 divisions. So St. Thomas a few years back was playing D3 football and skipped the D2 level and jumped straight from D3 to FCS because they were so dominant at the D3 level that the NCAA said a jump to D2 still wouldn't be fair. They get St. Thomas jumps from D3 to FCS, and this weekend Luke Glenna was a key piece in St. Thomas beating Davidson, 2-time Pioneer League champs back to back these past 2 years. St. Thomas put on a show and won that game, but St. Thomas is not eligible to win the conference or go to the playoffs up until 2026. 22 total tackles, a tackle for loss, and he made some key stops in the fourth quarter, which gave him my player of the week. So, man, shout out to Luke Glenna and St. Thomas. Braden Gilby, Furman linebacker, 12 total tackles, 3 for loss, and a sack in a big game for the Paladins. And then Colton Adams is my third pick. Alabama State linebacker. Jackson State pulls out the victory, man. But Colton Adams, 18 total tackles, a tackle for loss, 2 pass breakups, and was all over the field for Alabama State this weekend. Listen, Alabama State's defense played a hell of a game, and Colton Adams was everywhere. I think even some of the JSU fans I talked to after the game said, man, number 1 could play on any team in the SWAC and possibly even the FCS. Colton Adams, when healthy, is an absolute animal, and he popped off film this weekend. I was on the sidelines, and it seemed like every single opportunity he had, he made a play. Man, you cannot let one play define anything. That happens. Everyone gets got at some point. Everybody has that moment, Sean. So I'm taking the totality of the game, man. And Colton Adams deserves a shout out. The wild card, man. Definitely would love to do that. Hit me up on social media, any social media, and I'll definitely get with you guys and love to do a show. Let's see. He said UIW put up 55 against Nevada. That is true. If any FCS player should be a candidate, it's him. That's a fact. No, but man, listen, Colton Adams still played well. So that's where I'm going to leave it right now. But man, let's get into let's get into some FCS recaps real quick, man. That way we can get to what I know everyone's tuned in to really talk about. Elon Townsend was a game that I thought Elon should have won by a little bit more. I'm going to be honest. I didn't think Towson should have been in this game. I didn't think Elon's offense had a great game. Elon didn't look as efficient on offense as they did in their big win over William and Mary or Richmond. Their defense played well. They held Towson to, I believe, under 230 yards of total offense. But man, they just never seemed to find their rhythm, and I felt like they played a little bit down toward their competition this week. But man, they still got two big wins on the resume. And as long as they keep rolling, it looks like they're going to be in the driver's seat right now for the CAA, especially with William and Mary's upset over Delaware. But Elon, 27-10 over Townsend. Now, South Dakota State. Let me just say this. I think when you're having a conversation about the best defenses in the FCS, you have to South Dakota State, Weber State, Montana, and Jackson State, and possibly even Mercer are the five teams that you really have to bring up in terms of game-changing defenses. And I think those five teams are probably got the best five defenses from top to bottom in the country. South Dakota State held South Dakota to 6 total first downs and 136 yards of total offense with less than 3 yards per play. Um, South Dakota almost doubled their total offense and punt yards this weekend against South Dakota State. And when you look at um, what's making the South Dakota State team, I would say, click right now, is the emergence of the run game. I think Isaiah Davis finally getting back to form. 108 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns this weekend, averaged over 7 yards per carry. That is the difference. And I think Isaiah Davis was having some issues early with health. Tucker Kraft, Isaiah Davis, Mark Gronkowski missing a lot of time early in last season, trying to build up that chemistry, get back into the flow of things. I think right now, South Dakota State, listen, if you don't know, South Dakota State and North Dakota State is a 1 versus 2 matchup this weekend in the Fargo Dome. I think right now, on paper, I'm not making my prediction yet. On paper right now, I think South Dakota State should probably be the favorite right now in that game. South Dakota State has looked like a more complete team. When North Dakota State not looking amazing this week, I think the Jackrabbits might have the advantage. I was talking to Dave, who's in the chat right now. It's going to be a nasty game, and I'm going to be really, really excited to see what that looks like. Now, Southern Illinois, I picked this one. I just think Missouri State has fallen completely off. Everyone knows how big momentum plays in college football. They are on an absolute slide right now. I believe it's a 4-game losing streak. All of their FCS losses are by double digits right now. Now, they have played some steep competition. I personally think Missouri State is in some trouble. Right now, I don't think Missouri State has a shot at the playoffs. I think this past weekend, losing the way they did to Southern Illinois took Missouri State out of the playoffs. And Bobby Petrino and Missouri State, who was a top 10 preseason team, a lot of people looked at them as a team who could take that next step, including me, especially with Jason Shelley. The offensive line of the defense did not improve like everyone thought it would. And right now, I don't think Missouri State has a shot at the playoffs. And I'm releasing my first bracketology coming on Wednesday on the show. Missouri State, in my opinion, is not going to be in the playoffs, and my bracketology is going to reflect that. But Southern Illinois has really bounced back after 2 early losses. They played a hell of a game, and I really like Nick Baker. He's playing great football. 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the defense picked apart Jason Shelley. He threw for less than 200 yards, 2 picks. They have a solid run game. Southern Illinois was the better team. I thought they were coming in. They get a big win over Missouri State. I don't know about that, Sean. I'll let my bracketology release by itself. I don't think FAMU right now is in the playoff hunt. Just in my, I don't even have them in my first 5 teams out. Mercer's in the SoCon, Aaron. So I do agree with you. I think Mercer wins the SoCon. And let's get into this game, man. Mercer is one of the hottest teams in the country right now. I can't wait to see. I cannot wait to go see them in 2 weeks play up in Chattanooga. Mercer's defense this year is the X factor, though. I knew the offense was going to be good. They put up 520 yards of total offense this weekend against Western Carolina. Western Carolina had one of the best offenses coming in. Carlos Davis was one of the top 10 passers in the country, and Mercer absolutely picked them apart. Under 250 total yards allowed for Western Carolina this weekend. And Western Carolina's quarterbacks combined for 4 interceptions this weekend. Mercer's secondary was unstoppable. Fred Payton, 247, 3 touchdowns, completed 16 of his 22 attempts. And this Mercer team is complete. They have about 3-4 rushing threats. They got an accurate quarterback who, right now, guys, Fred Payton is the only has the longest streak of passes without an interception. He has yet to throw an interception this year, and his streak even extends into last year. Devron Harper, Todd James are one of the best wide receiver duos in the country, and the defense just has a bunch of playmakers. Man, Isaac Dowling, 2 interceptions this weekend, 8 total tackles. They get TJ Moore. They just have so much talent at all levels of the defense. I do think Mercer right now could be a seed in the playoffs, and I never thought that would ever be the case, man. Mercer came into the year, I don't even know if they had a history of really being ranked in the FCS. Mercer right now could be a top 8 seed with the way that the CAA is playing out, where they're just going to end up cannibalizing itself. And depending on how things fall, do not be surprised if Mercer slides into that 8 or 7 spot, especially if Holy Cross drops one to Fordham or gets upset somewhere along the way. Mercer could find themselves with a first round bye, which is something that not many people would ever expect to happen coming into the season, coming off of what happened last year, where they were the first team out behind FAMU. Going to some of our Week 6 HBCU recap. Oh man. So I guess we're gonna have to talk about it, right? I guess we're gonna have to talk about. Let me get to this caller, and then we'll get into this. Let me turn this up real quick. 7681, you're live. 7681, you're live. Man, all right. So you can call back in if you want. Let's see. But he said, please no. Stick to the game only. I gotta give my minor thoughts. Okay. And y'all are gonna probably be a little bit surprised. So I was there, and I was there when I didn't record it because I didn't really think it was that big of a deal or anything like that. Um, I feel like what's been lost in all this, really and truly, before we get to the game, is just some rational discourse on this. Like, can we just sum everything that happened up with one phrase that it's just football at the end of the day? That there's emotions involved, tensions are high, testosterone is high, and man, it's football. And some people were pissed about losing the game, and that's just how it is. And people are emotional, and then I don't judge someone based on what happens in the heat of battle. Like, it's all good. I don't think anyone's feelings should have been hurt, and it's just, man, it's just football at the end of the day. Anyone in the chat who has played football at any level, if you have not been cursed at, if you haven't been pushed, if you haven't had a heated moment with someone, then man, you really and truly didn't play football. Or I want to know where you played. Even at Little League, that happens. And it blew my absolute mind that so many people were just appalled. Like, can you believe someone was cussing at this person or getting heated and all this? It's like, dude, have you not been out in the world? Have you not been to a real football game before? Are we really going to sit here and are we really going to sit here and just act like we're appalled that 18, 19-year-old kids who are hyped up on testosterone in a football game said some cuss words? Like, we're going to be upset about that? It just come on, man. People are way too sensitive about stuff nowadays. But I don't care who it is. I don't care if it was Prime, Eddie Robinson, bro, it is football at the end of the day. What happens between the white lines, let it happen. Who cares what was said? Like, yeah, I get it. Don't cuss at the coach, but anything that happens in between like white lines instead of in terms of trash talking or taunting, like, man, who cares? I have seen worse at like when I was in little league, man. Like I would trash talk, but as an offensive lineman, I guess people don't understand like the trash talk that goes on in the trenches. Like you got to be able to trash talk if you're O line, D line. But man, come on, it doesn't matter. And who cares if the dude didn't want to give him a hug and Prime shoved him? It is football. No one like it happens all the time. It happened like 2 weeks ago with Maynard and who was it, Willie Simmons, who got into it, and no one cared. It was like a little blimp on everything, but because of who it was, it's just wild, man. It blows my mind. Like I did not think th 2 days from when it was happening, there would still be social media talk about a handshake. Like, who cares at the end of the day, man? It's football. Like, I don't have to like you. Like, it's cool. I don't have to like you, and you don't have to like me. We just keep it moving. And so, I don't think it should have got the media attention it did, and I think I do agree here. It probably would have blown a little bit over with the press conference, but I do want to say if you go back and watch the show from the very beginning when I started over 4 years ago, um, I've not been a fan of post game press conferences right after the game. Um, Emotions are still high. And yes, the opposing coaches on both sides are either you're going to be really high on like, okay, we won that game, and you might say something out of pocket, or you're going to be really upset and say something that you probably don't mean. And in the heat of the moment, it comes out wrong. I really think coaches should have a cool down period after games to get their thoughts together and everything. And the worst possible thing that happened was all that blows up on the field, they go straight into the locker room and they do the post-game press conference without giving Coach Robinson or Coach Palmer or anyone a cool down period. Coaches, players, people say things crazy when they're hyped up like that, and they don't have a cool down period. I think that was the biggest thing, is that at the MEAC SWAC challenge, it said on the little itinerary, like, we're gonna give coaches, I think it was like 20 minutes. So the winning coach had a 5-minute cool down period, and also in the losing coach has a 15-20 minute cool down period, and that's part of like FBS football too. So I thought I was really surprised that the SWAC didn't really have cool down periods, because I mean they went straight from the field to the press conference, and I'm like, what happened to the cool down period? Especially losing a competitive game like that after what happened after. There's always um there's always cooldown periods at every other level of football. So I was really surprised that they didn't have a longer cooldown period due to what happened. But listen, at the end of the day, it's football. Everyone's got to stop getting upset. Like, no, like everyone in the chat played football at some time, said something out of pocket to someone, and it got heated, or you've been in a fight in a game, or you yelled at someone you shouldn't have, or the fans got into it. Listen, it's football at the end of the day, and it's all good. I just think people got too worked up over nothing. But man, let's get into the game real quick. Um, One, if you're just tuning in, I was at this game, got to work the sidelines, man. Shout out to all the Alabama State people that real that hooked me up this weekend, and I want to thank everyone that had a part in that. So if you're looking for highlights, it's on the channel, and the photo gallery will be dropping tomorrow on the website, thebluebloodspod.com, and I'll be posting it on social media. So get ready for some. I got some really really good pictures that I can't wait to that I can't wait to drop. But this game was, I think, a lot more competitive than a lot of people thought, including myself. I thought Jackson State was going to come in there and just stomp them, and that didn't happen. I thought the Alabama State defense did a good job of pressuring Shador. This was the first game that I think Jackson State's offensive line got picked apart. And what I mean by that is I felt like they didn't pick up the blitz very well. They didn't pick up any stunts. That they really just seemed completely out of sync this weekend. I think the offensive line is better than last year, but this year I think Alabama State did a great job of putting a lot of pressure on them to make decisions. They did a great job of kind of using a chaos front. They were bringing people down. They were bringing different blitzes. The creativity of Eddie Robinson Jr. and the defensive staff was really shown this week in terms of how to get to Shador. And then, I know some people talked about Jackson State getting there late and the offense kind of being off their rhythm or everything. But I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Shador looked a little bit hurt before the game. I'm not making an excuse for Shador. I'm not breaking news that he has an injury, but when he was throwing before the game, there were a few times where he went to throw a deep ball in warm-ups and he kind of was like shaking out his shoulder, and they had a trainer over there kind of pushing on his shoulder and working out underneath the pads on his shoulder. And so I'm really wondering. And then in the press conference today, Prime said he went to a doctor to get it looked at. He really did look beat up in terms of even before the game, and he took some shots. On that, I believe it was the Kevin Coleman touchdown that he threw down on the far end. He got lit up on that play, man. They put him into the dirt a few times, and then at the end of the game, when he was scrambling to put the game away, he got lit up a few times, and this was the first time I think Shador really got touched in a game that I've seen in his Jackson State career outside of that South Carolina State game. But for Jackson State's offense, I still think they did a good enough job, man, to put the points on the board when they were needed. And even though it was ugly, when they needed a drive, so Bama State goes down, gets the game to a one-score game, they walked right down the field to put the game away, I believe, on the J.D. Martin touchdown. And so you got to give Jackson State this. When they needed a play made, Shador and the offense went and made a play. And on that drive, I think Shador had two big scrambles. He throws the touchdown pass, 332 for 3 touchdowns this weekend. And I want the question I have is, which quarterback for Alabama State were you guys most impressed with? Do you think Miles Crawley was the better quarterback this weekend, or do you guys think if Demetrius Davis was the guy if he doesn't end up getting hurt? In case you guys missed it, on one of the sacks, it looked like his ankle got rolled up on by one of his teammates, and so that's why Davis went out of the game. It looked like his ankle got rolled up on, and I don't think he had the mobility to really move forward. I thought Savion Wilkerson did a solid job. He had 19 attempts. I saw people saying that that Jackson State should have ran the ball more. I don't know if people know this. I mean, they had 30 rushing attempts this weekend. I don't know how much more. I don't know how much more you wanted them to run. I mean, Savion Wilkerson had almost 20 carries, so I don't think it was a matter of that. I just think the offensive line really and truly put Jackson State in some bad positions at times, and that's what kept Alabama State in the game. I've talked about it over and over. When Jackson State gets to the red zone, you have to put touchdowns on the board because kicking field goals keeps teams in the game. It happened against Tennessee State, and it happened this weekend. If Jackson State puts touchdowns on the board in Alabama State territory, this game's a blowout. But man, they're having a lot of trouble right now putting the ball in the end zone and the red zone, especially against teams that have pretty solid defenses. And so that's the biggest question mark is, man, what's the next step for Jackson State's red zone offense? Because if they put touchdowns up, they don't I don't think they have a close game on the schedule right now. But you have to be more efficient in the red zone, in my opinion. That's the one thing. I thought the Alabama State rushing attack, man, I needed more. Ja'Cory Merritt, Santo Dunn, all those guys, they needed to do more this weekend. You got to give the front seven of Jackson State a lot of credit. They held Alabama State to, I think, 39 rushing yards. That touchdown on the QB sneak, and it was 1.7 yards per carry. That's going to get you beat every time. I said in this game you had to let Merritt, Dunn, and that running back core get loose against Jackson State, and Jackson State absolutely played lights out on defense, and you got to give them their credit. Now, I hate to say that I was wrong. I really thought Dallas Daniels was going to, after his big performance a few weeks ago, I thought Dallas Daniels established himself as the number one option in terms of wide receivers for Jackson State. Willie Gaines has been in my opinion, I think Willie Gaines has established himself as a better deep threat. And I think with Willie Gaines and Dallas Daniels, I think right now those are your two best receiving options for Jackson State. And I didn't see Willie Gaines making the impact that that he has this season. I thought it was going to be Dallas Daniels and he was going to get a majority of the targets, but man, Willie Gaines has really established himself over these past few weeks, and he had a big touchdown. He had a big touchdown this weekend. Had that game-winning touchdown against Tennessee State, or the game-sealing touchdown. Um, it's going to be interesting to see what this team looks like. But let me get to this call real quick. 7681, you're live.
Hey, Blue, how you doing?
What's good, man?
So I got a 3-part for you. One, with Southeast Louisiana dropping to A&M Commerce, what does that do to the bids in the Southland with UIW also being out there?
In my bracketology, I have UIW winning the conference now. I think Southeastern will drop another game. They still have the tiebreaker, but if they struggle with Texas A&M Commerce, I don't have confidence that they are going to be 100% winning out. While I don't see Incarnate Word being tested anywhere else down the stretch.
Okay. Second part, just because some of us are going at it in the chat a little, it looks like JSU and UIW are both tied for 8 in the stats poll. Who do you think? There's no way they're going to see each other. Who do you think wins that matchup?
I don't know. That would be a dream matchup, though. You get Lindsey Scott and that offense against the Jackson State defense. Sign me up for that. Man, I don't know. I think that's a toss-up game, but right now, with the way Lindsey Scott's playing, I think Incarnate Word takes that matchup, but I don't think it's a blowout. I think Incarnate Word wins a close one.
Okay. And I think last question, with them being, like I said, tied for 8 in the polls, do you think UIW wins out the rest of the way, like you said? Do you think they can, with that win over Southern Louisiana looking better, do you think they can sneak in and get a top 8 seed in the first round bye?
Possibly, but the problem with their schedule is I don't know if they have enough signature wins, because I would personally give Weber, with 2 Big Sky losses, the seed over an Incarnate Word winning out. So I think it's going to be a hard road for them to get it, because I think Mercer will probably get it over them, especially if they beat Chattanooga. I think Weber, Sac State, Montana, South Dakota State, North Dakota State, all those teams are probably going to jump in front of them. So I don't, it's going to be hard. They're going to need a lot of people to lose.
Fair enough. All right, man.
Appreciate you. What's good, Steve? You're live.
What's going on, Blue? How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm
glad that you enjoyed homecoming. I want to switch it up to the FCS really quick, the Missouri Valley Conference. Do you think South Dakota State will be North Dakota State again? Because they won 4 out of the last 6 these past years.
I don't want to give away my pick, but if I had to look at it right this second, I think South Dakota State is probably going to be favored in that game based on the field performance this year.
Okay. And last question. I mean, FAMU, my alma mater, FAMU has won 4 straight. Who does it look good for FAMU or Jackson State? Because we want to get the at-large again. I mean, we don't have no signature win, but we've just beat South Carolina State. Obviously, they're going to be the winner of the MEAC back at the Celebration Bowl. Does that look like a good win on our resume? Because I know we beat Albany State and these other, low-tier swag schools, but, beating South Carolina State this weekend means so. I'm going to hang up and just listen to your call, listen to your response on TV. But thanks, man.
Hey, appreciate you. I guess to get to his question, I think it looks good for both. I mean, any team, if a team beats somebody, it's always good for that team to go and just keep winning. So I think FAMU winning is good for Jackson State's resume. If FAMU finishes the season 9-2 and Jackson State has a 59-3 win over FAMU, that looks amazing, in my opinion. All right. I mean, Jackson State fans in the chat, I mean, y'all can let me know. that's good, right? I mean, Jackson wants FAMU to keep winning because they're going to be like, listen, we just beat a 9-2 team 59-3 week 1 in Florida too. So I think it looks good for both teams. If you're FAMU, you want to keep winning because I mean, why wouldn't you? And then Jackson State's like, great, we have a huge week 1 win over a really good team. If you're a Jackson State fan, I don't see why you would ever want to root against a team you beat. She said, I want Tennessee State to win. They did this weekend, Paris. Listen, I don't know if y'all saw Draylon Ellis came back and Tennessee State put a beat down on Bethune-Cookman. I think they beat Bethune 41-17. That's that's legit. Oh, let's see. If New Hampshire finishes the season without another loss, and NCCU finishes the year without another loss, what's NCCU's ranking of the ceilings? I still think it's probably somewhere in the back end. I think probably anywhere from 18 to 25. It just depends on what happens in front of them. But I think anywhere from 18 to 25 would probably be their ceiling in terms of rankings, even if that happened. But Southern PV, man. Let's get to Southern PV real quick. And so I saw the one view of the brawl. Listen, I don't have an opinion on it. Again, yes, it shouldn't happen, but at the end of the day, man, it's football and it's happened before, and I really don't. I really don't care. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Like the brawling and and anything like that, it really doesn't phase me. Everyone who has watched football forever has seen it. I really don't care about the brawl, but there definitely needed to be more ref involvement. The coaches should have done a better job breaking it up. And it looked like some of the coaches were even going back and forth and kind of escalating the situation. If you're a coach and a ref, you should have nipped that in the bud early and not allowed that to escalate. Because with the coaches energizing the players and putting a battery in their back, man, you can't allow that to happen. And they should have got the players off the field and separated way quicker, but they let it escalate, and that's what happens when you got a bunch of 18 to 23-year-olds all hyped up before the game. So I mean, it's crazy. But Southern finally looks like the team that everyone coming into the year thought they would. Bashawn McCray finally looks like a legit quarterback, man. 16 for 22, 2 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. Trayvon Conley was not efficient through the air, which I don't think many people thought he would be. But the rushing attack, was there, but I don't think they had anyone take over like they needed to for PV. I think the leading rusher was Antoine, 59 total yards, no touchdowns. They had no rushing touchdowns this weekend for PV. Bashawn McCray, 85 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. Carl Ligon also was the leading rusher. They need to get healthy at running back. I'm just going to say this. I think Southern's potential is capped until they're until Southern's fully healthy at running back. They got to have an every down back, the Kobe Dillon, someone come back that can really lead them at the running back spot. But I thought Southern played a hell of a game, man. I thought they did well playing in the backfield. I think the defensive line played really well. Trey Lang looked legit, and I think Corian Harris is a godsend in the secondary. They did not have a corner or a defensive back last year that was as talented as Corian Harris, and he is really and truly I think he's been, in my opinion, the best defensive player on Southern this season. But Norfolk and Morgan, this one kind of broke my heart. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. I thought Morgan had this one, and they just gave it away. Otto Coons for Norfolk stepped up this game, 288 yards passing this week, and Norfolk found a way to get it done. Alfonso Graham is absolutely legit at running back for Morgan, though. 203 yards and a touchdown. He averaged 8.8 yards per carry. It's just Norfolk jumped on him, and Morgan wasn't able to do enough down the stretch to win. I thought Morgan played a solid game, and they tried to come back toward the end, but they got down early, and Norfolk State was able to hold them off. So this was a tough loss for Morgan. I know Damon Wilson came into the year, expectations weren't super high, but this was a game they needed to win, and this was a must win for Norfolk. You got to give that team credit. Odom's pulled through in conference, and now they're sitting at 1-0 in conference. Yes, they may have went 0-5 out of conference, but if they can string together some wins, they can compete for the MEAC shockingly. And this was a must win for them, and they pulled it out. So I got to give them some credit. And FAMU, South Carolina State. Man, what can I say about this one? The first half, FAMU looked unbeatable for really the first 3 quarters. It was 20-0 up until South Carolina State put on just a hell of a comeback in in the fourth quarter. They scored 14 unanswered in the fourth quarter and just could not do enough to get back. And I do want to say, I want to know y'all's opinion because I went back and watched the game and I kind of got my thoughts on it. Do you think both of these teams are just that bad at running the football, or do you think these front sevens are that good? I want to hear y'all's opinion. Do you think FAMU and South Carolina State just have that good of front sevens, or do you think both these teams are just terrible at running the football? Because total, they combined for less than 80 yards total rushing. FAMU had 54 yards rushing, and South Carolina State had 19. FAMU averaged 1.8 yards per carry, and I can't believe I'm saying this. South Carolina State averaged 0.9 yards rushing. 0.9. They didn't even average 1 yard per carry as a team. I don't even know how that is possible. How do you not even average? You should just be able to fall forward for a yard by running like QB sneaks. Yes, we are that bad. Coach said we are at the bottom of the conference in running, and that's unacceptable. That's ridiculous. Let's see how many rushing attempts. So just to break it down for you, FAMU had 30 attempts for 54 yards. That's 1.8 average. And South Carolina State ran the ball 21 times for 19 yards. Jesus Christ, man. That's bad. And I don't know if you remember, South Carolina State got held to less than 2 yards per carry against North Carolina A&T too. So I really do think it's just both teams are that bad at running the football. They are atrocious, and that is horrible for a FAMU team that came in with with an amazing running back room with McLeod and Jennings and AJ Davis and DeAndre Francis. They had a hell of a running back room, and they can't run the ball for anything. And then you come in with an all-conference running back, Kendrell Flowers, if you're South Carolina State, and they can't run the damn football to save their life. And that is horrible for South Carolina State. And for me, until South Carolina State can establish the run, there is zero chance South Carolina State wins the MEAC with that rushing attack. If you can't run the football, man, I'm telling you, Corey Fields, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to pick on Corey Fields, but Corey Fields is not going to win you any football games. He's not. If you can't average 1 yard per carry, Corey Fields is not going to win you many games, and you are not going to win the MEAC. You're not going to win many games like that. Corey Fields went 17 for 48, 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. 17 for 48? Come on, man. That is. Listen, I get it. He won one last year. He has yet to win them a game on his back this year. They lost the A&T game because they couldn't run the football, and Fields messed that up. And they lost this game because they couldn't run the football, and Corey Fields cost them this game. I'm sorry. It's just a fact. They're not going to win like this. You cannot convince me they are. It's easier for them to keen in on the run game when we struggle past it. I have no answers, Blue. This is wild. Man, I know you feel some type of way, man. Let's see. I think that, hang on. I think this is Kobe. 6523. You're live.
Yo, what's up, Blue?
What's good, man? I thought this was you. I was like, I recognize the number, man. What's good?
Blue. I have no clue what's going on with South Carolina State in that run game, bro. I'm sitting in the stands and I'm like, okay, you return the whole offensive line except for one person. Why can't we run the ball? What's going on? And when it comes to the passing game, you're absolutely right, bro. I love Corey as a person. I swear I do. But he can't win us a game playing like that, man. It's so inconsistent. You know, like I've seen him play decent games, you know, but like last year versus Alabama State, you know, he went toe to toe with Akil Glass, but man, like it's just way too sporadic with him.
And I feel like, honestly, we're at a point now where we're wasting Shaq's talent a little bit, because we give him a couple. We always go to him when we get desperate. Like, okay, throw it up to Shaq. Let's see if he can bring us back. I'm tired of that. We gotta establish his dominance early. You have Raheem White, who's built just like Shaq on the other side of the ball. He can't even get the ball. Like, we can't get the ball to the playmakers that we have in the receiver room, man. Like, it's frustrating. I think a change needs to be made. Me personally, I don't know why you don't even put Tyrese Nick in earlier. I mean, he was the one who gave you a spark versus the Gamecocks. He got you on the board. He's a threat running the ball. Maybe you could have got something going there. I don't know what Coach P was thinking, but I did get a word from somebody that he's kind of in the doghouse because of off the field issues. But if it's just me, being that you have a Division II opponent this week for homecoming, maybe you look at Andre Washington or Prometheus and just see what they got. Somebody has to save the season. I don't. Maybe that's dramatic, but something got to happen at quarterback.
I mean, for me, okay, so Corey Fields played well. People forget because Corey Fields played really amazing in the second half against Jackson State, but I don't think people remember how bad that first half was.
Right.
And I just think he had a special half. And my biggest concern is if Kendrell Flowers can't take the pressure off, there's no way Corey Fields throwing 40 plus times in a game is good for South Carolina State.
It's not because, like, okay, like Blue, you even see his throwing motion, right? Like, it needs work, bro. It's like a wind up.
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
And it's frustrating because, like you said, Shaq is a top 5 wide receiver in the FCS. I mean, he is a monster. And I know some people in the chat are saying they hope he transfers. I ain't going to comment on that, but he is so good. Just what stats would he have with a Lindsey Scott, a Shador, or a Tim Morat, or someone at quarterback?
Like, bro, you're looking at like maybe player of the week almost every week. Like, because he's just so gifted when you can get the ball in his vicinity. Like, with that wingspan and that in his frame, like, you can be draped on him and he's gonna come down with that catch. Like, you saw it. You saw it last week. He continuously does this with a proper quarterback, man. He can be unstoppable. And I can't say who, but I can tell you that after the game, I talked to a player, and I feel like if one player feels like this, a lot of players feels like this. When it comes to Corey, man, they kind of on the edge with them too. Like, it's not just us watching. Like, there are players in that locker room who kind of, they love Corey as a person, but they're kind of getting frustrated because they know what they could be. So, like, who knows what's gonna happen down the road? Maybe they make a change soon. But, like, it's starting to become a problem in the locker room as well.
All right, so 2 quick questions for you, man, because you're the South Carolina State guy. One, how confident do you feel in South Carolina State winning the MEAC? And 2, BJ Davis, man. How special is he? Because I think he has been having a amazing year. And I said last week, I think he's going to wind up in the Buck Buchanan race pretty soon. The way he's playing.
Man, I was so taken aback by BJ and those back-to-back interceptions. It was absolutely phenomenal. I think when you looked at the team from like just an in-person standpoint, everybody looked like the game was over with. BJ was the only one on that sideline breathing life into everybody. He's the life of that defense. He's the life of that team. He's a very special guy. This is a guy who goes out to get like double-digit tackles like on any given night for you, and then you add that on with the 2 picks. Man, I had to give him his props after that game. I'm like, man, you're special. And I think you just showed tonight why your name is gonna be in the run for a lot of awards, and you are a legitimate NFL talent. And this is why they've been raving about you since they put Darius Leonard in the league. So I'd like BJ. I have nothing but great things for him. As for the team and how confident I am, I'm gonna rock with them no matter what. You know that, but I am nervous as hell about North Carolina Central coming in just 2 weeks. And honestly, it's not even just North Carolina Central. I saw how Morgan State played. I'm nervous about them. I'm not as confident as I was. I'm gonna rock with them, but if we can't get it figured out offensively, bro, this could go way less because we have the talent, man. But it's something. I think for me, it's the quarterback position. But something has to happen.
Man, I agree. But man, see, I appreciate you calling in. Guys, y'all already know who it is. My guy Kobe, Blitz City Podcast, man. Make sure to go subscribe. But I appreciate you calling in, bro.
I appreciate you, bro.
Definitely make sure to go subscribe to my guy. One of the best YouTube channels out there for sure. But if I'm not mistaken, Shaq Davis has 2 years of eligibility left. I know I saw that question somewhere. I apologize if I missed it. Yeah, I believe he has 2 years of eligibility left. If I'm not mistaken, I think he's a junior this year, so it should be 2. But man, real quick, let me go through these quick because I got to get out of here in about 30 minutes, and I want to get to y'all's comments and calls. William and Mary, Delaware, upset of the week, man. Listen, I did not see this coming. I was so high on Delaware coming into this game. Nolan Henderson, 203, 2 touchdowns for Delaware. The 0 passing attack at all for William and Mary, but they ran the football straight down Delaware's throat, man. 271 on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and Bronson Yoder is an absolute monster, man. 114 and a touchdown himself, almost 6 yards per carry. He is legit. And William and Mary has one of the best rushing attacks in the country. And man, that front 7 is a problem. John Pius has taken such a lead in the Buck Buchanan. 2 more sacks this week. 2 more. He was already leading the FCS in sacks. He got 2 more this weekend. He has like a 3 or 4 sack lead right now over everyone else. The front 7 for William and Mary rivals anybody in FCS football with Pius, with Nate Lynn. The front 7 for William and Mary is absolutely legit, man. Huge win for the Tribe this weekend over Delaware. And we're about to get to my top 25, and you'll see some big shakeups. And then finally, not surprising, Weber State beats Eastern Washington 45-21. And this all goes on, in my opinion, the defense. The defense for Weber State is one of the I mentioned them earlier, one of the best, man. Winston Reed, Garrett Beck, Eddie Heckert, all of these guys can be all over the football field. Maxwell Anderson again with another interception already leads to FCS in interceptions, and Tom McPherson at the wide receiver spot, 6 catches, 128 and a touchdown for Weber State. I am extremely high on Weber State in my top 25. Is going to reflect that, to say the least, man. But huge win for Weber State. But let's get to my top 25 for this week, man. Then we'll get to your calls and questions in the chat for just a few minutes, man, before I got to get out of here. But not many no changes in the top 4. The top 4 didn't change much. North Dakota State, South Dakota State will battle for the 1 spot next week, and Montana State will be tested moving forward. But the difference between probably my top 6 teams is very slim, and you could argue that they could be placed anywhere based on their resume. All their resumes are extremely close. Weber State jumps all the way to 5th after a big win over Eastern Washington. They got an FBS win. They've looked impressive all season long, and the defense has looked extremely, extremely impressive right now. And so Weber State, in my opinion, is a top 5 team in the country. Sac State drops to 6 because of the jump for Weber State. Holy Cross moves to 7, Mercer to 8, Jackson State 9, and Cardinate Word moves to 10. And then 11, 12, and 13 were interesting. The CAA is going to cannibalize itself, in my opinion. Elon beat William and Mary. William and Mary beat Delaware, and Delaware and Elon got to play later. But for right now, Elon, William and Mary, and Delaware is where they're going to line up, just based on head-to-head opponents and what's coming up in the future. So that's why I ordered them. Chattanooga fell just because of William and Mary and Elon jumping up. Sanford falls at 15. Southeast Missouri State falls at 16. Southern Illinois and North Dakota at 17, 18. Fordham up to 19. Richmond at 20. UT Martin drops to 21. Their loss to their loss to Missouri State looks really bad. That's why they dropped a little bit. Rhode Island at 22. Austin P at 23. Campbell and Idaho rounding out the top 25. The 24 through about 28 range, I had a few teams, but because of Campbell, Idaho has not lost an FCS game, which is why they lost 2 really close FBS games, which is why they slide at 25. Campbell, their loss to William and Mary looks great, and they beat North Carolina Central, who absolutely dominated who absolutely dominated New Hampshire. My bad. And so that's why I put Campbell above New Hampshire right now in my rankings. Monmouth is also in the conversation, but Monmouth lost to Fordham and a bad loss week 1. So Monmouth is just out of the top 25 as well. But this is what I submitted this week. There were a lot of people who are really just waiting on next week, because next week is going to determine a whole lot moving forward. And so this is the top 25 for now, man. And I think the next few weeks with Mercer, Chattanooga, with North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Weber State plays Sac State coming up. The whole Big Sky plays each other. This is going to be a very, very interesting top 25 moving forward. What's good, Steve? You're live again, man.
All right, really quickly. I know I just saw your rankings. Like the CAA, the last week of the season, Blue, they're really gonna hurt each other, because that's how it was last year. And for FAMU to get in, like the CAA teams will knock each other out. Do you think the committee gonna let that happen again? Or, I mean, we're not magicians or whatever, but you think that's gonna happen again with the CAA teams beating each other up?
Possibly, but I think even with what's happened right now, I still think Elon, William & Mary, and Delaware, unless they just fall completely apart, are locks to get in right this second. The teams
Yes,
that FAMU needs to look for are Richmond, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. If one or two of those teams gets hot, then FAMU could be in trouble getting in. And I don't think FAMU's I would say bid is really going to go. It's not going to really be based on the CAA. I think it's going to be based on Fordham. Fordham might be the key for FAMU, because if Fordham upsets Holy Cross, the Patriot League gets 2 bids, and that really hurts FAMU. And then also, if Southeast Missouri State wins the OVC and UT Martin does enough down the stretch to get in, the OVC steals 2 bids, and then the SoCon is really strong this year. Mercer's pretty much guaranteed to get in. Chattanooga, if they don't fall apart, can get in. You still got Sanford sitting there. And the other key is if Austin P doesn't get the auto bid of the ASUN and the WAC, and they give it to Stephen F. Austin, which is what they would do right now, which is not correct in my opinion, but we'll let that ride. Austin P is going to get an at-large bid over FAMU too, because of how well they played against some of the top 25 teams, especially Eastern Kentucky. So I think FAMU is at a very large disadvantage right now, and they're going to need some chaos, more chaos than last year, to get in.
I know. I mean, I remember last year, Athlon Sports had them 30th, but we got the bid, and we got the at-large bid, because that towards the end, they said we didn't really beat nobody. But I mean, you know me, I love my alma mater, FAMU. I played there, man. But thanks for the call, Blue. You have a good night, man.
You too, man. Appreciate you. 7166, you're live.
Hey, what's going on, Blue?
What's good, man?
Not much, man. I know you pressed for time, so I'm gonna try to be quick as possible, man. First off, make sure y'all like the stream, support my dog. Anyway, so man, well, I think with the whole Corey Fields thing, I think what people are kind of missing, I mean, I feel it's the same Corey Fields, to be honest with you. If you really look at the second half, he did his best work when it was past the 50, where he didn't have to drive them down the field. You know what I mean? Because the defense, played a hell of a game. So, I mean, like, if you're asking them to drive, 80 yards, that's where, you're in trouble. 40, 50 yards, you give him a little bit of wiggle room. So he just needs a lot of help. So I think that's one thing. But, his play does surprise me at all. He's definitely not going to win you a game on his own. First of all, and then, I'm so upset with Morgan State. One, they lost me a little 14 parlay that I had, man. Every team I picked covered except for Morgan State. You know what I mean? So that hurt my heart right there. And I want to give a shout out to Alabama State for playing hard, man. You know what I mean? That defense real. You know what I mean? They came in that game as a 24-point, underdog. So I mean, them boys definitely held up, man. And I think, if they get a little bit more talent on the offensive end, and Demetrius Davidson maybe stay healthy, or even they go with Miles. I think Miles played pretty well. I think they can do some things in about a year or two. Another one last thing I will say. You know what I mean? With Shaq Davis, I would love for him to transfer to Central. You know what I mean? Not too far from South Carolina. You know what I mean? He's still right by his people, but him playing on Central would do wonders. I mean, they would wreck shop in the MEAC. You know what I mean? But those are just my quick thoughts. I wanted to get that out of the way. But Blue, keep up the good work.
Appreciate you, man.
All right.
Man, probably about 10-ish minutes, man. I'm gonna stay on here, man. So get your questions in the chat. Also, if you want to call in, you can also South Charleston Southern is winless. It is, man. But if you want to get your calls in before the show ends, 701-779-9585. 3307, you're live.
Hey, Blue, for a minute.
What's good, man?
Imagine this. South Carolina State winning out in the MEAC and possibly beating Jackson State in the Celebration Bowl and us crowning them national champions. So that means forgetting the way they don't play the last 3 weeks, losing against North Carolina A&T in the fashion they did, losing against FAMU. The game was a blowout until later on in the fourth quarter, but whatever. And just disqualifying the whole season for them winning one game and crowning them HBCU national champions. What you think about it?
All right, so let me make sure I got you. So South Carolina State winning out. They have
the same thing from last year.
Oh, and I mean, I guess you can. Jesus, man, what a hell of a situation. I mean, of course,
but Blue, I say that because it's the same thing that happened last year. Corey Field was awful last year. He just so happened to have a great second half against the Celebration Bowl and everybody crowned him champions. But, like, you can't forget half of the season. Like, he was god-awful. South Carolina State was god-awful. Losing to multiple HBCU teams. You see what I'm saying?
No, I mean, I feel you. I said that after the Celebration Bowl. I was like, man, it's hard to crown someone HBCU national champions when you lost, like, all of your other HBCU games. I mean, that's tough. If that happens, it'll be the same thing that happened last year. Jackson State will claim. You'll have South Carolina State claim, and then God forbid, if you want to take it a step further, if FAMU somehow made the playoffs, they would claim too, and you'd have a three-way HBCU national championship, and then hell, NCCU one loss might get in the playoffs too. So, man, chaos could happen, but I think that's what happens. It happened throughout the BCS era all the time, where teams thought they had a good enough resume and claimed championships. And I don't think it's going to stop unless, there was the idea of an HBCU playoff and everything like that. But it's going to happen up until there's like a legit game called the HBCU National Championship. And that's what it is.
All right. And last thing, this point in the season, how do you feel about SWAC play versus MEAC play? I think there's been a couple games played. I think the SWAC might be 2-0. I know FAM just beat South Carolina State, and I know Bama State beat Hampton. Well, how you see the balance as far as the talent and the power of teams this year?
I think the who beat Bethune? Was it South Carolina State that beat Bethune?
Yeah, South Carolina State. Yeah, they beat it.
And then Alabama State beat Howard. It's hard because you're comparing a 6-team conference to a 12-team conference. So if let's just do this. We'll take the top 6 teams from the SWAC, however you want to slice it. I mean, it's probably what FAMU, Jackson State, PV, Southern, Alcorn,
Southern,
and then whoever you want to slide into that 6th spot. I think the top 6 of the SWAC is just as strong as the top 6 in the MEAC. And I think because of how dominant Jackson State's been, I would give it to the SWAC, because I don't think there's a team in the MEAC that has looked that good. And with South Carolina State struggling like they are, losing to FAMU this past weekend, I think having FAMU, having Jackson State, and then I think Southern, Alcorn, and PV would probably be somewhere in the second to third place range in the MEAC. I think I would give the SWAC the better strength right now.
All right, cool. Appreciate that, Blue.
Yeah, appreciate you, man.
All right.
I don't know how y'all feel about it. It's just tough to compare a 6-team conference to a 12-team conference, man. There's just so many more teams. But Khalil, I loved Alabama State, man. The campus was amazing, man. The atmosphere was just outrageous. I didn't get a chance to look around the whole campus because I don't know who was down there this weekend. It was packed out this weekend, man. I mean, there were parts where you could barely walk. I mean, there were people everywhere, and I kind of got to the game a little bit late. There were some parking situations happening, so I parked at my friend's house up the road from the stadium and Ubered in. But man, the atmosphere was amazing. Everyone I met down there was amazing. The stadium was beautiful. I had a blast this weekend. Like I said, one of the best trips I've had all season was to Alabama State Jackson this weekend. 4708, you're live.
Hey, what's up, Blue? How you doing today?
What's good, man?
You still riding with Weber State?
Man,
for the Big Sky?
I don't know if they're going to win it, though, man, because their schedule is brutal.
That's what I'm saying.
I think
the Grizzlies schedule in the Eastern – I mean, the Grizzlies and Weber have, like, the hardest schedule in the conference. The Grizzlies' last 5 games, good luck. If they get through it unscathed, good for them. But the Bobcats have the best finish in the Big Sky Conference. Their 2 hardest games are at home. We're on a 16-game home win streak. I think the Cats are going to win the Big Sky if we don't shit on ourselves.
I kind of agree with you, especially it depends because I heard Malott is back this weekend,
but we don't play each other, so it might be a tie.
That's true. I don't know, man. You guys are rolling. I mean, you guys are rolling though. I love Chambers at quarterback. I know I might be in the minority here. I think he should start when Malott comes back.
So that's a big thing over here in Bozeman right now. But I think Vegan just came out today saying that Tommy will start. He just got cleared on today, and I think he will start. But I think you will see a lot of Chambers, just like how they were in the beginning of the season. But I think our defense is slowly catching on. We got a lot of turnovers last week. That's huge. I know it's Idaho State, but it's a good stepping stone to move forward for us.
I agree. My plan, because I really want to get to Bozeman for a game so bad. And I have a game the weekend of the Montana State game. So I can't come this year. Next year, that's a game that's going to be on the schedule. But I'm going to wait till the bracket comes out. And I'm going to try to make Bozeman one of my playoff trips. I want to come up there for a game because I think you guys are going to be a seed again. And depending on what round y'all host and who y'all host, I think Bozeman is going to be one of the trips I make for one of the playoff rounds.
Yeah, I think if we win out, we're going to be the number 2 seed in the nation, at least.
I agree.
So we're going to have a home field advantage all the way through.
Yeah, that's because I think whoever loses the game this weekend before between the Dakotas, the winner's probably going to be the number 1 seed because I don't see either team losing moving forward. And I think the other team will either be the 3 or 4 seed. And that's what I have in my bracketology because I think right now I have South Dakota State at 1 and I got North Dakota State at 3 is how I have it. Because right now I would lean South Dakota State in that game going into this weekend.
Yeah, and I don't see the Grizzlies not losing at least twice. I know they're going to lose to us at home, but they're going to play Weber. I think they play Sac State, and then they play Idaho this week. And Idaho's a 120-year-old rivalry, and Bobby Houck, their rat-faced coach, is kind of like pushing to the side like they don't mean nothing. So I think Idaho's going to come in and ruffle some feathers, honestly.
That would be a hell of an upset. I'm just going to say that. That would be a huge
I love
upset.
every second of it.
But yeah, man, the Big Sky is going to be interesting. I still think you guys get Montana State, and Sac State are probably guaranteed seeds right now. And Weber's going to be in competition for that 8th seed, if I had to guess.
If they win out, they're going to be in a top seed.
That's
they're
a
going to be
fact,
big
but
time.
I can't see it right
Their
now.
schedule is going to be harder than North Dakota State or South Dakota State.
Oh yeah. The one question I have about Weber is quarterback consistency. They got running backs, they got wide receivers, they got a hell of a defense. I just don't trust their quarterback right now, and that means a lot in November.
Yeah, 100%. That's playoff time. That's when the true teams come out when the quarterback shows up, and that's where Tommy showed up last year. He flipped our team on our heads with our quarterback at the end of it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because it looked like for a while there that Chambers was going to be the new Tommy and possibly lead y'all to the championship, and that Vegan would have two guys who stepped in as backups to get him to the Natty. I mean, it would be a hell of a story.
Yeah. You know, I would honestly like to see Tommy sit this week too, or just get half playing time, just because I want his head to really fully recover, because he was out for 2 months, like cold, sleeping. So I want his brain to like fully recover before he has to play Weber in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, you're going to have to be fully healthy because that Weber defense is legit.
Yeah. I think Chambers can take the reins again this week. And then who knows how it goes? Who knows how it goes so far? I think Chambers will get more comfortable. He came to MSU to get his mental right. He had a lot of things going on in Wyoming, wanted to leave. And now he's in Bozeman, a better place for him mentally. So I think that's changed him a lot.
Yeah, I agree, man. Listen, I think they both are extremely talented. And if they can come up with some unique 2-quarterback system, kind of like Sac State runs, I think Montana State will be just fine, especially with all the injuries at running back. Man, you got 2 quarterbacks that can get out of the pocket and really be explosive. Montana State's going to be just fine. But, man, I appreciate the call.
Yeah, thank you. And before we go, I'd like to say everyone was worried about our offensive line, and now we're rolling on everybody with our 4th and 5th string running backs. Wait till Isaiah might come back this month, maybe for Weber State. Who knows? But he might be earlier than we thought. So that'll be exciting to have him back. Then we're really looking in trouble.
Hey, that's a fact, man. Hey, I appreciate you, man. I'm hoping Isaiah comes back because, like you said, probably the best running back at the FCS level.
I think so.
Hey, absolutely, man. Hey, have a good one, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Cheers.
All right, we got Mr. Ford on the line next. What's up, Mr. Ford? You're live.
Hey, listen, let me turn this thing down. Blue, I wanted you to talk on Southern University. After this week, Southern is a team that's on my mind. Number one, do you think Southern could win the SWAC? Is it Southern? Is it they play like that when Jason Dumas is there? Because to me, it's like they're a different team if Dumas sitting in the lineup. Then, like I've always said over and over, you don't have to worry about Eric Dooley. He's going to score 40 and 50 points. But at the same time, Henry Miller going to give away 40 and 50 points. So I just want to know from you, what are the things Southern got to do to win the SWAC? Southern got all these big-time games. They got Alcorn. They got Florida A&M. They got who else is big for them? I know they got the Bayou Classic. It's like they're the team to follow here on out. Can you talk about their schedule a little bit? I know they got Alcorn this week. Okay, now when do they play Florida A&M?
The first week of November.
Okay, do they have any other big game? I know they got to play Grambling.
Jackson. They still got Jackson State.
They got Jackson. And so what I'm asking you is, do you see the possibility of Southern and Jackson playing 2 times? One at Jackson for the regular season, and then again at Jackson for the SWAC championship. And what would have to happen for that to take place? I'm going to let you handle that.
I think it's possible. I mean, if they play like they did this weekend, like you said, it's a different team when Jason Dumas is playing. And it was like that at PV. Yeah. When he missed time at PV, that team looked completely different. So maybe the defense looks like it was supposed to. And then the other question is can McCray be the quarterback he was this weekend? He was efficient, confident, he managed the game well, and he didn't turn the football over. And if they get that, they can win a lot of games. And then also, do you believe that their running back room can get healthy in time? That's a question. If when they
That's
get
Kobe Dillon.
Yep. If they get him back, they're going to be tough to beat, but they're going to have to beat FAM. They're going to have to beat Alcorn, and they're going to have to beat Grambling. The only game they can afford to lose is against Jackson State. And that's
Yeah.
the way they're going to have to get there, because they're going to have to bet that Alcorn State loses to them and loses to Jackson State. They're going to have to hope
But now
Alcorn.
let me say this here, Blue. You know, you had talked about them kids that came to them from Bowie State. One of them is a DB. He made an interception and return. That boy's a pro. I watched him. He's a pro. What you think about him? That he was the DB that made the interception and returned it for a touchdown in the fourth quarter. What's your thoughts on him?
Both of them have pro potential, but you
Yeah,
mentioned, I
that's
think
what
they
I
got a
thought,
few
too.
DBs. The one that they got from McNeese too looks legit.
Yeah,
Harris.
that's 4, right? Is
Yeah.
that 4?
Yeah, I believe so. He's either 3 or 4. I don't know. I
Yeah,
think he's
I
one
know
of
he's
them,
on the
but
corner, right?
yeah, but he's legit. And I think they just got to mesh, man. They brought in a lot of transfers, and I think it took them some time, but I want to see how they look this weekend against Alcorn, because up until this weekend, it didn't look as if Southern was going to be able to compete with Alcorn State. But if they play like they did last weekend, Dumas rejuvenizes the defense, and McCray plays efficient, they have a team that can knock off Alcorn State this weekend. And that's going to be my question: is can they slow Howard for Alcorn, because he has been damn near unstoppable this year.
Let me put you on the spot now, Blue. If Southern had to play Jackson right now, could Southern beat Jackson?
No, I mean,
What you
I've
think?
said before, I don't think there's a team in the SWAC that's realistically going to beat Jackson. I think Alcorn can possibly keep it close, and Southern has the ability to possibly keep it competitive, but I don't see anyone in the SWAC right now who would beat Jackson State.
Okay. So what now? Were you impressed with them this week? Because I'm serious. All the games I watched, I saw Alabama State, I saw Jackson, I saw FAM, South Carolina State. I saw all them games this week. I'm telling you, the school that is on my mind after this past week is Southern. And for me, I think the Southern can get better. I think they, especially on defense, I think they can get better. I know they're going to get better on offense, because that's just, that's the doodly. But I've always thought their Achilles heel was the defense, especially the front seven. And I just think that they can get so much better.
They got some room to improve. I think Southern had the biggest ceiling to improve because of the injuries that they had. I think whoever wins this weekend is going to win the SWAC West, though. Whoever wins in this Alcorn State Southern game is going to win. And the reason that I think Texas Southern doesn't have a shot is because they're too inconsistent. Texas Southern 1 week can compete with some of the best teams in the West. The next week, they're going to lose to someone they shouldn't, just because that they just have a bad game.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, they're not going to try to get rid of McKinnell, right? They're not going to try to get rid of him, are they?
I haven't heard anything either way. I think it depends on how they finish the season. If they just go on a losing streak, then I could see them getting rid of him. But if let's say they finish third in the division, Mr. Ford, I mean, that's better result than they've had in a while. I think they probably keep him.
Well, let me ask you this, my last question. Do you think bringing in a celebrity coach / NFL coach is the answer for Texas Southern?
Yes, I think for them it is, because, with Morgan, I think they made the right hire, because they hired a coach that has won in that area and knows how to recruit in that area and develop talent. And Morgan needed that. For Texas Southern, they need a coach who's going to attract some of that top Texas talent. You have to get someone that has a pull, that has a brand that some of those kids in Texas are going to listen to, and get Texas Southern's foot in the door and get people to invest money and invest interest and get Texas Southern back on the map. And I think a celebrity coach is what they're going to need. I really do. I don't think a celebrity coach is for everybody, but Texas Southern is in a region where you're going to have to separate yourselves from the incarnate words, the Sam Houston States, the Houstons, the Baylors, the TCUs. I mean, the list goes on and on, the SMUs. There's too much talent in that state for you just to be another team.
Well, I wanted to say this for two things I want to say before I get off the line, which I think we can put the Dion, the Georgia Tech talk to rest now. These people are really kind of fired up with this Brent Key? And the word over here in Atlanta is if he continues to win, he's going to get that job. I don't know if you heard that, but they are really excited about him. He's a Georgia Tech graduate. He's from Alabama. Now, I would like to ask you now, what do you think about his recruiting skills? Will he be able to? Because now, see what Georgia Tech is looking for. They're looking for somebody to go against Kirby Smart. And see, I keep telling people, the main thing with Kirby Smart is bringing in top 10 talent. Can this Brent Key bring top 10 talent to Georgia Tech? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know, man. I don't know if he can. Really and truly, I think they need a more established coach. If you ask me, I get it. He's doing well as the intern. I got you. But we've seen too many times where interns do get hot because it's like almost like a reset button for a team. Like I think there's two or three interim head coaches in college football, and they all have winning records right now since they've taken over. It's just a rejuvenation, but he does have history on Alabama's staff. I believe he was the offensive line coach for a few years for Alabama. So maybe he can use what he learned and the connections that he has to put together one hell of a recruiting staff. But the question that people always ask me, especially the recruiting guys at On3, is when you walk into a 5-stars house and you say the name Brent Key, do they know who that is? And to me, I don't know if they do.
Right. Now, this is my final question. Listen, I see North Carolina Central coming out of the MEAC. Who do you see so far? Who do you see
I got
playing?
Central. I think
I thought Central's the best team I've seen.
Yeah, 1,000%. I don't trust Corey Fields at quarterback for South Carolina State right now, and their inability to run the football is concerning, especially when you look at the one team that manhandled North Carolina Central was Campbell, who has one of the best rushing attacks in the country right now. I don't trust South Carolina State to take advantage of that. And so if they put the game on Corey Fields, the secondary for Central is extremely talented, and I think they're going to pick Corey Fields apart. They're going to load the box and say, outside of Shaq, who we're going to bracket and double, I don't think anyone else can beat us on that offense. And right now, I think they might be right.
Yeah. Listen, Blue, keep up the good work, man, and have a good night, okay?
Appreciate you, Mr. Ford. Have a good one.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, shutting down the call line right now. Just to recap before, man, I get out of here in case you missed the beginning part of the show. Let me go back through these slides real quick. Offensive player of the weeks, or offensive players of the week, man. Whew. Lindsey Scott Jr., Cade Brister, and Jeremiah Dobbins. Defensive players of the week, Luke Glenna, Braden Gilby, and Colton Adams. Man, Elon with the big win. South Dakota State dominates South Dakota. Southern Illinois ends Missouri State's playoff hopes. Mercer absolutely dismantles Western Carolina. Jackson State over Alabama State this weekend in a very interesting game, to say the least. Southern dominates Prairie View. Norfolk upsets Morgan State. FAMU gets past South Carolina State. William & Mary shocks the world and beats Delaware, and Weber State continues their roll over Eastern Washington. The top 25's here. You can hear more rationale on the website, thebluebloodspod.com. And on top of that, pictures, the photo gallery will be out from the Jackson State Alabama State game this weekend, tomorrow morning on our website, thebluebloodspod.com. You can check out the highlights on our channel, man, recorded by yours truly on the sideline, man. This weekend for FCS game day, I should be in Baton Rouge with Southern Alcorn. If anything changes, I'll post it on Twitter. And also the next week, I'll be at Mercer and Chattanooga for that big game. Wayne, before I go, I think Bama still probably wins that game, but man, I think Tennessee is going to give them hell. And man, if Tennessee wins that game, I will not be shocked. Hendon Hooker is playing as good as any quarterback in the country, and I do have concerns about Bryce Young's health right now, but I really do think I really do think Bama squeaks out alive, man. I try not to bet against Saban when I can, but Wayne, if you want to hear more at 8 p.m. Central Time, I'm going to be on the Frankly Speaking Sports podcast, and we're definitely going to give a full breakdown of that game. So you can go check it out. Frankly Speaking Sports on YouTube, Wayne, if you want to find that. But right now, I'm going to lean Bama in that game. But guys, I appreciate y'all tuning into the show. And then up until next time, the Blue Bloods are out.